Diep has gone missing, and no one knows where she is or what has happened to her. This sudden disappearance has caused deep concern and pain. A woman, very worried, said she asked someone to find Diep, but he hasn't been able to locate her. The phone number she's trying is currently unavailable, which adds to her stress. In her distress, she reaches out, hoping for any information, and shares her name, Diep, and some details about herself, explaining she had an accident on the road and doesn't remember much about her family or where she's from. She's unsure if she knows someone named James. The confusion and fear grow heavier because no one seems to know where to begin looking. Elsewhere, someone asks James if the person shown to him is the one they were looking for, but he denies it. Meanwhile, others are continuing with their daily tasks. There are meetings, reports, and duties that need to be done. Amid this, a conversation reveals that two young men had already spoken to some individuals about possibly confronting John. Plans are being considered, whether to expose the truth or hide it, and this reveals the deeper layers of what's happening behind the scenes. There's discussion about needing new supplies and how John might be preparing to strike again. There is a sense of urgency and danger growing with every minute. The group realizes they must act quickly. They agree to move forward, with some deciding to follow up on leads to prevent being taken down. James is worried. He wants to take responsibility and acknowledges he should have been more cautious. He learns that on the day Diep returned from work, she was attacked by some men who had broken into the house. This shocking event left everyone shaken. A man comes forward to apologize and tries to explain what happened, but guilt hangs heavily in the air. People recall that James wasn't at home during the incident and that Diep had been alone. The tragedy feels personal and painful to everyone involved. Investigators begin gathering more information. James is desperate to understand what happened to Diep and where she might have gone. The police have launched a search using vehicles and motorbikes, but so far there's been no sign of her. The silence around Diep's fate is unbearable. Those close to her are left in the dark, with only bits and pieces of what might have happened. The sense of helplessness is overwhelming. James and others continue to hope that she will be found, but as time passes, the fear only grows stronger. As the hours passed, the tension continued to mount. James was called in again, asked to confirm if a girl shown to him was the person they were looking for. He stared at the image, but shook his head. It wasn't Diep. At the same time, other people around him were continuing their work, trying to maintain some form of normalcy. Meetings were being held, reports were being filed, yet everything felt hollow because Diep was still missing. Every person close to her was silently bearing a weight too heavy to explain. Conversations between James and his allies revealed a quiet desperation. They had tried everything. Two young men had already taken action earlier, reaching out to someone named John to try and push for answers. John, it seemed, was a powerful man with deep ties and dangerous influence. They discussed whether they should confront him again or attempt to negotiate through other means, but no option felt truly safe. John's reach and reputation had created fear in their hearts. Still, James and his friends couldn't give up. Supplies were being arranged for something bigger, a confrontation or a secret deal that might finally lead them to Diep. There was talk of buying new materials, coordinating with sellers, and staying one step ahead of John's movements. A wave of paranoia began to build. What if they waited too long? What if John knew everything they were planning? James and his friend debated whether it was time to act immediately or to hold back and strategize further. Fear clawed at them, but so did urgency. James insisted that even if they ended up in jail or faced serious consequences, they needed to try. The thought of losing Diep forever was far more unbearable than any punishment they might receive. They were operating on fragments, pieces of information, rumors, vague sightings, anonymous tips. Some people were sent to search different areas. Others tried asking around local communities and neighborhoods. Every time a new clue appeared, hopes would rise, but just as quickly, they would fall when the trail turned cold. A woman, someone close to James, felt so helpless she began begging for help from anyone she met. She gave out her contact details, hoping someone would remember anything, even a small moment where Diep might have been seen. She confessed that she couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and couldn't forgive herself for not protecting Diep when she had the chance. Her heart was heavy with guilt, especially knowing that she wasn't even Diep's real family, but had come to love her as if she were. The police investigation had started, but no solid progress had been made. The house where Diep lived had been broken into. Witnesses said that she returned home from work, only to be ambushed by several men already inside. That moment of horror was still etched in their minds. No screams, no calls, just silence. James blamed himself. He hadn't been home that day, too busy with work, too distracted to see the dangers that had been closing in. As he sat down with two younger men, likely friends or family, he tried to piece together what had gone wrong. They spoke about the time leading up to the attack, the strange faces seen around the neighborhood, the nervous energy that no one had taken seriously until it was too late. Emotions ran high. Some people wanted to take immediate revenge, to storm John's place and demand answers. Others, more cautious, said they needed to wait for solid evidence. James listened to them all, but in his heart, he was breaking. Diep meant everything to him. Losing her now would be like losing a part of his soul. He didn't care about the risks anymore. He was ready to sacrifice everything, his reputation, his freedom, even his business, if it meant bringing Diep back safely. But as the hours turned into days, the silence surrounding her fate grew heavier. Everyone around him tried to stay strong, but their eyes showed the truth. They were terrified she might never come back. And yet, through it all, James kept pushing. Every hour, he was sending someone out, asking questions, checking abandoned warehouses, old buildings, farms on the edge of the city, anywhere a person could be hidden away. But no matter where they searched, Diep was not there. Some people said she might have been taken far away. Others feared she was hurt or worse. A motherly woman, perhaps Diep's guardian, was seen walking from place to place, speaking with anyone who would listen, asking if they had seen her beloved girl. Her voice was tired. Her body moved slowly, but her eyes were full of determination. She wasn't going to stop searching until Diep was found, even if it meant risking everything. At this point, all that remained was hope. James, his friends, and Diep's family were all clinging to the thin thread of belief that she was still alive, that she was waiting to be saved. The fear of the unknown, the weight of guilt, and the desperation to correct their past mistakes had united them. They were all moving with one goal: to bring Diep home. Even in the darkest moments, their love for her kept their hearts from collapsing completely. But time was running out. As the search for Diep entered its most painful phase, the lines between hope and despair blurred more than ever. The people closest to her, especially James, felt as though they were drowning in uncertainty. Every day brought more unanswered questions. James was haunted by thoughts of what could have happened, by the image of her being scared and alone. He tried to stay strong, to act as the anchor for everyone else, but inside, he was breaking piece by piece. His home felt cold and hollow without her. He would sit in silence, staring at his phone, hoping for a call, a message, anything, but it never came. Rumors began to spread. Some said Diep had been taken by someone who wanted to use her as leverage against James. Others speculated that she had been betrayed by someone she trusted. No one knew the full truth, and that made the pain worse. People who once stood confidently now spoke in whispers, afraid to say what they feared most. A few individuals started claiming they had seen her, offering vague directions or contradictory stories. But every time James followed those leads, he hit a dead end. The emotional exhaustion was real. Even the police, though trying their best, were growing frustrated with how little progress they'd made. Then came a difficult confrontation. James was told that on the day Diep disappeared, there were people watching her house, men she didn't know. She had just returned from work, tired but calm, and likely never expected the horror waiting inside. Witnesses finally came forward, describing shadows moving inside the house before she arrived. No alarms were raised, no calls were made. The entire attack was carried out in chilling silence. One neighbor revealed that after hearing a strange noise, he saw a van driving away quickly, but it was too dark to make out the license plate. That single missed detail haunted everyone who heard it. James blamed himself more than anyone else. He kept replaying that day in his mind. how he was away, chasing meaningless meetings and ignoring a strange gut feeling that had nudged him earlier. He hadn't listened. Now he was facing the consequences. When he sat with Diep's family, especially her mother, the guilt only deepened. Her mother looked aged by years, not days. She barely slept, and whenever she spoke, her voice was filled with trembles. She said she should have protected Diep, should have sensed something. James held her hands and broke down. Two people connected by grief, desperately needing each other's strength. But what made the pain sharper was the uncertainty about who was responsible. Was it truly John behind this? Why target Diep specifically? What had she done or seen that made her a threat? James suspected John because of their recent business tensions. John had always been the kind of man who did not play fair. He had influence, power, and more importantly, a heart cold enough to harm the innocent for personal gain. But no hard proof tied him to the incident, just whispers, warnings, and a pattern of behavior. James wanted to confront him, but his advisors urged caution. If John really was behind it, provoking him without evidence could make things worse. James tried to hold onto every shred of information. He interviewed employees, reviewed old footage, analyzed Diep's phone records. He even turned to the black market for clues, speaking to people he never thought he'd associate with, just in case someone out there had seen something others missed. The further he dug, the more dangerous it became. And yet, every night, he returned home empty-handed. The house echoed with her absence. Her favorite mug on the table, her scarf on the coat rack, her scent still lingered on the pillow. These small things shattered him more than words ever could. In one especially painful moment, James was told that a girl matching Diep's description had been seen near a distant warehouse, frightened, barefoot, being dragged by two men. He rushed there, heart pounding, but when he arrived, the place was empty. Only old crates, cold air, and the sound of wind answered his questions. He screamed her name into the darkness, hoping she would respond. But silence greeted him again. He sank to his knees, fists clenched against the cold floor, as tears streamed down his face. How could someone so kind, so full of life, just vanish? Still, despite everything, he did not give up. Even as his body weakened from sleepless nights and endless stress, his soul refused to let go. Diep wasn't just a woman he loved. She was his peace, his light, his reason to believe in goodness. He owed it to her to keep going. He promised her mother, her friends, and most of all himself, that no matter what happened, he would not stop until she was found. And somewhere in the depths of his heart, a small but fierce hope continued to burn. He didn't know how and he didn't know when, but he believed he would bring her home. As time dragged forward and each passing day felt like an eternity, James reached a point where his body was exhausted, but his heart refused to stop searching. He kept meeting people, revisiting every place Diep had been, and replaying every word she had spoken in the weeks before her disappearance. He even revisited her childhood home, hoping it might give him a clue, a memory, a hidden truth, anything to help him understand where she might have gone or who would have wanted to take her away. Meanwhile, Diep's mother couldn't sleep anymore. Every creak in the house made her think Diep had returned. Every phone ring made her heart leap, and then crash. She kept blaming herself, whispering apologies into the quiet nights. James tried to comfort her, but he too was grieving. He had never known pain like this. Love was supposed to make life fuller, softer, but this love was now soaked in fear and helplessness. A small group of loyal friends and neighbors began to organize search parties. They printed flyers, questioned strangers, followed trails no one believed in. One woman reported seeing a girl resembling Diep wandering the forest edge near a medicinal herb path she used to take. Others reported seeing suspicious activity near abandoned barns, hidden basements, old farms. Every rumor became a mission. James followed them all. The forest became a place he both feared and needed to walk through. He would call out her name and listen, hoping to hear a faint reply. But the trees only answered with wind and rustling leaves. Then, during one late evening, a breakthrough happened. A man from a nearby commune came forward and said he might have seen Diep, or someone who looked like her, being dragged into a black car by two men in plain clothes. They didn't scream, they didn't run. The scene was cold and calculated. The man hadn't said anything earlier because he feared retaliation. James begged him for more details, and for the first time in days, a sense of direction returned. He alerted the authorities, and a new search began based on the tip. The tension was unbearable. James felt like this might be their last chance. A location was pinpointed, an old warehouse, half collapsed and hidden among tall reeds near the mountainside. The place had once been used for transporting illegal goods, abandoned now, or so everyone thought. A coordinated plan was put in motion. James, along with police and a few trusted friends, surrounded the building under the cover of night. The air was thick with silence and anticipation. And then movement. One of the police officers signaled quietly. The team moved in. Inside, under broken lights and amidst crates of forgotten things, they found her. Deep, weak, bruised, barely conscious but alive. When James saw her, something inside him cracked open. He didn't say a word. He simply ran to her, dropped to his knees, and pulled her into his arms, sobbing. Deep, in a faint whisper, said his name. That single word erased the silence of every empty day that had passed since she was taken. The rescue team worked quickly. Diep was rushed to the hospital, and for the first time in weeks, there was light. Her recovery was slow. She had been drugged and moved between locations, but she was strong. In those dark days, it was her love for James that gave her the will to stay alive. She had kept herself going by replaying memories of their laughter, their promises, their dreams. Now that she was safe, she could finally breathe again. James never left her side. He fed her, read to her, held her hand through the nightmares, and whispered that he'd never stop fighting for her. Meanwhile, police arrested several people involved in the abduction. Though the main conspirator, John, had gone into hiding, his network began to collapse. The community turned against him. His name, once spoken in fear, became a symbol of cruelty. More people came forward with information, and eventually, he was found. But before justice could catch up, John tried to flee. In a final confrontation with James, he looked him in the eyes and said, "You were never supposed to win." James replied quietly, "I didn't win. Love did." Diep's return wasn't just a rescue. It was a reminder to everyone that truth, love, and hope are stronger than cruelty. In the final days of her recovery, as she stood by the window watching the sunlight return, James walked up behind her, wrapped his arms around her, and said, "You are home now." She turned, smiled with tears in her eyes, and whispered, "And you are my home." To all the viewers watching this emotional journey, if this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories of love, courage, and hope to life. Share this with someone who believes that no matter how dark the path, love will always find a way.